By the early 1970s, college campuses across Washington state felt a quiet unease. Women disappeared without warning. No bodies, no witnesses, no signs of struggle. The air itself felt colder, as if something unseen prowled beneath its surface. And that something was Ted Bundy. Bundy's first confirmed attacks were not random, they were calculated. He followed specific patterns. His victims often had long, dark hair, parted neatly in the middle. He approached them in public places, libraries, parking lots, dormitories where his charm gave him instant access. With his casted arm or crutches, he appeared harmless, even vulnerable. The disguise was brilliant. Women who saw him didn't see a predator. They saw a man asking for help. The first confirmed disappearance was Linda Ann Healy, a college student who lived in a quiet, safe neighborhood. On a cold February morning, she simply vanished from her bed. The room was left strangely undisturbed, clothes neatly arranged, blankets folded back. Only a bloodstain on the pillow suggested something had gone terribly wrong. Whoever took her was calm, controlled, precise. That someone was Bundy. Over the next months, several more women disappeared. Geneseo Titi, Denise Naslin, Georgianne Hawkins. Each one young, bright, full of life. Each one gone within hours, sometimes minutes. Ted Bundy had perfected his style. He would approach a woman with an injured arm story, lure her close, and then act so quickly that no one around even noticed. His victims vanished in broad daylight. One of the most chilling moments occurred at Lake Sonoma State Park during a crowded summer afternoon. Hundreds of people were out enjoying the sun. Bundy walked among them with confidence. He approached women openly, introducing himself with a smile. "Hi, I'm Ted. Can you help me with my sailboat?" Some said no. Some said yes. At least two never returned. Witnesses described him clearly: his height, his face, his charming voice. Police created a sketch. Tips poured, naming Ted Bundy repeatedly, but investigators dismissed him. He didn't look dangerous enough. He was a law student, a volunteer counselor, a clean-cut young man with a bright smile. How could he be a killer? Bundy relied on this blindness. He knew the world trusted people who looked like him, and he exploited that trust with terrifying ease. His confidence grew with every successful attack. He began taking victims farther into the woods, where he felt complete control. He returned to the scenes days or weeks later, revisiting his crimes, reliving the thrill. It wasn't just killing, it was ownership, domination, and power. By the time investigators realized they were dealing with a serial killer, Bundy had already moved ahead, leaving behind a trail of disappearances that had no pattern except for one. Every woman he approached believed she was safe before she vanished, and that was Bundy's greatest weapon. He never looked like danger. As the disappearances continued, panic spread across Washington and Oregon. Parents warned their daughters not to walk alone. College campuses increased security. Women traveled in groups, looking over their shoulders, avoiding parking lots and dark hallways. A predator was out there, but no one knew where, or who, or when he would strike next. Police departments across multiple counties scrambled to piece together a puzzle without edges. Different jurisdictions handled different cases, and communication between them was slow, fragmented, and often disorganized. At the time, the idea of a serial killer operating across states was almost unthinkable. Investigators struggled to see the pattern Ted created with careful precision. But then came a crucial break. Witnesses from Lake Sonoma provided consistent descriptions of the same man. Attractive, polite, well-dressed, with his arm in a sling. They remembered his introduction. Ted had noted he drove a Volkswagen Beetle. For the first time, the police had something solid. A face, a name, a car. They released a sketch. It spread across newspapers and campuses, and suddenly, tips flooded in. Hundreds of names were submitted. Among them, Ted Bundy. Bundy's girlfriend, Elizabeth Kendall, called the police after recognizing both the sketch and the name. She wasn't the only one. Several friends and co-workers also reported him, but investigators dismissed these reports. Bundy didn't match the profile of a killer. They believed killers were reclusive, socially awkward, uneducated. Bundy was clean-cut, articulate, even the detectives admitted that when they saw him in person, he looked too normal to be capable of such brutality. This assumption was Bundy's greatest shield. Meanwhile, Ted continued killing. He grew bolder, taking greater risks, traveling farther. The police remained several steps behind, overwhelmed by the sheer number of missing women. Bodies began to surface in remote wooded areas, confirming that a single attacker was responsible. Fear turned into horror as investigators realized the depth of the nightmare they were facing. Bundy, watching the investigation unfold like a spectator, adjusted his tactics. He changed states, altered his appearance, and began refining his methods. Every move was strategic. Every disappearance was a message that went unanswered. The investigation turned into a race against time, a race Bundy was winning. He knew how police thought. He studied law. He followed the news. He read about the cases. He adapted with frightening speed. Archie! Juan Point detectives interviewed him briefly. They asked questions. He answered politely. He smiled, shook their hands, and walked away. They let him go because they couldn't imagine that a man who looked so calm, so intelligent, so controlled, could be the very monster they were hunting. The truth was right in front of them, but they didn't know it. Ted Bundy lived in the space between what people saw and what they believed. And in that space, he moved freely. Bundy's first capture came almost by accident. In August 1975, a police officer noticed a suspicious Volkswagen driving late at night. Inside were handcuffs, rope, a ski mask, and ice pick tools no innocent person should have. Ted Bundy was arrested, though he denied everything with calm confidence. He acted so polite, so cooperative, that even the officer who arrested him later said he struggled to see Bundy as dangerous. When police linked him to multiple disappearances, Ted still didn't panic. Instead, he studied law books, preparing to defend himself. He believed he was smarter than everyone else, smarter than the police, smarter than the prosecutors, smarter than the system. And maybe he was, because soon he pulled off something unthinkable. During a court visit, Bundy was allowed to use a law library without restraints. The guards trusted him. They shouldn't have. When the officer watching him looked away for just a moment, Ted climbed out of a second-story window and vanished into the mountains. His escape triggered the largest manhunt in Colorado's history. For 6 days, he survived on stolen food and clothes before being recaptured, physically exhausted but mentally energized. The escape had given him a taste of freedom and he wanted more. Back in jail, Bundy plotted again. This time, he took no risks. He lost weight deliberately, carved a hole in the ceiling of his cell, and waited on a cold December night while guards enjoyed their Christmas break. Ted climbed through the hole, crawled across the ceiling, dropped into a prison apartment, changed his clothes, and walked out the front door. 4 weeks. No one noticed he was gone. Bundy moved across states, eventually reaching Florida. And there, in the early morning hours, he committed his most brutal crimes. The Chi Omega sorority house attack shocked the nation. Police finally realized the monster was loose again. His second capture came almost as casually as the first. A police officer pulled over a suspicious car. The man inside gave a fake name, avoided eye contact, and looked exhausted. When the officer asked his real identity, Ted whispered, "I wish you had killed me." The double escapes stunned America. News stations covered him relentlessly. People couldn't understand how a man so charming and intelligent could also be so savage and unstoppable. But Bundy's escapes revealed the truth. He believed he was superior, untouchable, above the law. Even after being captured again, Ted continued to manipulate, to charm, to control the narrative. He treated the entire country like an audience, smiling for cameras, flirting with reporters, pretending to be the victim of injustice. In reality, he was preparing for the final act of his life, the trial that would turn him into a spectacle.